from me trusting my community, just trusting the elements of our world, that there are good things happening and that we will center and come together at some point when it's necessary. And I think it's always necessary, you know, like Malcolm says, that by any means necessary, but that's how I pull fruit from me trusting my community, just trusting the elements of our world knows that there are good things happening and that we will center and come together at some point when it's necessary. And I think it's always necessary. Do this, but you want me to risk my life? You know, you want me to go out there and like seek injury so that I can establish a sounding board for things I've already said on your behalf? Like I can't do that. The reason I was running for office is because it's safer for me to be in that element. It's more resources for us. You want me to risk my life? Why would you want me to go out there and murder, like seek injury? That's how, so that I can establish. But that's why I sounding board for things that I've already said on your behalf.
That's enough as long as you speak your truth, because people listen to you. You know, like you have to realize that regardless of how many followers you have or whatever, like people actually listen to your voice. And I think you being so grassroots about everything gives me hope that that's the real revolution that we need. My other question to you is, for people that are very skeptical of, you know, politics and stuff, I know we're on the same page about a lot of that stuff, but what was your driving force behind going within the system when you know that it needs to be fully dismantled?
Oh, I'm smart. So I figured I'd use the platform to educate our community. I figured, you know, we used to call it, back in the day, they used to call it swagger jacket, right? So I figured, you know, I'm competent enough to run a campaign and utilize that campaign platform to educate my community firmly, so that not only do you see the credentialing of somebody from your neighborhood standing on this platform that's supposed to be so intimidating, but you can see them perform well based on promoting platform issues that actually are mindful and part of your life. You know, things that really occur to you that there's a problem with, because one of the people I was running against, the only thing he could talk about was like, look, city's gonna be bad if I'm not the mayor. And I was like, oh damn, you sound like Donald Trump. And then the other person was like, yeah, we need more biking and we need more urban development. And I was like, damn, that sounds like gentrification. Every single day, like, hey, there's not enough food in a lot of these neighborhoods. The cost of living is outrageous. These sidewalks aren't cool. We're shutting accessibility for our disabled community. And we lead the nation in sexual violence against women and children. Like, all these major issues that I didn't hear anybody talking about, that I knew our city should have been focused on providing resources to address. because you can't lead the nation and unhoused people and not have that be a big system that you want to, focus on a platform.
I'm back.
Did you hear me?
I heard you for like until the last 30 seconds.
Okay, I was just talking about how I used the platform to talk about putting weed money into housing and addiction services, and how Ted Wheeler finally decided to do that after the campaign. But during the campaign, they wouldn't even speak to the issue. But that was kind of why I used that platform, so that I could do civic engagement with our community. And also I wanted to win.
I think, one thing, for example, like a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters always feel let down when he doesn't win. And this gives people like us the realization that there are people that really have the same values as we do and are willing to do the work as long as they feel like they're fully supported. And even if they don't win, the seed has been planted for somebody else. Like, you talked about, like, you don't have to necessarily be the mayor, you can still do the work, and maybe somebody else after you, well, not maybe, there will be somebody else after you that continues to do the work. Well, one thing that I realize is very important right now too, I know, like, Don't Shoot PX is, it's very short and sweet when it comes to what the mission is. And it's like, stop killing Black people. I feel like there's a lot of relation between the values of Black lives and equity in this nation. And one thing during COVID that I started to see more that I'm really excited about is a lot of friends of mine are doing things like there's sanctuary farms that's providing food for free to people in the community, and that's co-owned by one of my friends that's a musician. And then we have trying to think, like Black Feast. They make care packages for Black people in the community. That comes from, like, derived from food, self-care products. I like to say self-love products, things like that. I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is I feel like it's equally important to have discussions about our quality of life and not only just living. Is there any missions you have that talk about that per se?
What do you mean the quality of life? We've been doing food distribution, healthy meals to families since my nephew died in 2010. I think, like, the first year after I had surgery in 2017, as Don't Shoot Portland, we fed like 10,000 people hot meals just on every third Saturday. But because we have our office in Northeast Portland, right now we not only provide food, clothing, advocacy for every level, every intersection, but we also provide free legal services, which a lot of people need, regardless of if they're Black or white. And one of the last things we did before COVID shut us down was a free expungement clinic that had both of our buildings filled, where so many people were able to get information to help themselves out. And then even when COVID did hit, we were still doing online eviction clinics. We were doing online credit clinics. We were making sure that people understood what their rights were, because it's very important not only to understand your rights when you come in contact with the police, or what to do if, your child gets murdered in the streets, how to relocate, how to find justice, how to take care of your family. But it's also important to just know your rights every day. Like, what does, a pandemic and a rent freeze or a rent strike or a rent moratorium, what does that actually mean? How do I, talk to my creditors if I don't have, good credit, and I know that for 6 months I'm going to be locked in the house with no income. Like, there's very important things that a lot of people on an everyday basis need information about, but there's not a lot of organizations that's like, hey, check this out. You know how you don't know what to do about your car note? Hey, we got a free legal clinic with lawyers that's going to be available to you. We're going to pay for it. Like, if you have an issue and you need that access and you don't have it, it's not going to just be pro bono, but we actually will pay for it. When the lawsuits, we gave our lawyers about $100,000 just to protect protesters from tear gas because we thought that was a public health issue. You know what I'm saying? Just the fact that they're attacking people with, chemicals during a pandemic. It wasn't so much to me personally about your freedom of speech and the right to protest. It was the fact that, wait a minute, I'm sitting in the house with asthma because we got a global pandemic, and these people are outside getting attacked by tear gas and all kinds of accelerants. Why isn't anybody doing anything about it? Hey, lawyers, can y'all do this? And these people are outside getting this a clear wraparound accelerant. Why isn't anybody doing anything about it? Hey, lawyers, can y'all do this? Contractor, and you need legal.
All these protests during COVID and stuff. You also mentioned the other day an installation. Is it in the Pearl?
Oh yeah, art. That's our so my nephew was murdered in gun violence on September 26th of 2010. And one of the things that he was always telling me that his friends were rappers or that they knew how to do stuff. So Andre, he got killed going to a hip hop concert. Like, he literally went to go check out some art, and he got killed. He died before that morning. And so part of what I do is I used to love music. I still love it, but he knew that about me. So I started dealing with art. I'm good, but I would be around artists so that I could have that energy help me focus and communicate how I was feeling. And so at some point, I think it was because of Glenn and Rashid and all these kids that I was coming around while I was trying to still figure things out. It wasn't Don't Shoot yet, but it was like No Limit stickers. It's all this stuff that was going on in our community. It's Mike Cakes, Mike spoke for me back in 2012. It was all these kids that had this brilliance and that were using their ability to make art to communicate who they were to society. And so that started making me feel good. And I realized if I could position my organization to kind of create that resource for youth, the art, like that sanctuary, if I could make sure they had art resources, had art access, if they could learn how to express themselves using art because of what they're learning about social justice or history, I believe that that's a platform that's sustainable because you can never stop going and learning something about your environment and not wanting to share it. Anything you learn, you're gonna want to share it. When you have that resource of art, that medium, it's easier to apply it to the world. And so that's what we've been doing with Don't Shoot, as well as the community action plan. I call it a community art project. And so every year on August 9th, which is the day I was arrested, I have an art project to kind of talk about not only the state of the world, but also like where are we at now? Like if we started protesting for Mike Brown on August 9th when he was murdered by Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri, what have we done as an organization in this city to make our lives better? Who are the people that we're honoring? What are the work that we are doing in order to honor them? What policy has changed? Who have we lost? What things have we gone through that make us stay together? And so I do the community art project every year to celebrate Black August, to uplift everybody's work. And right now you got Stop Killing Us, a Black Lives Matter exhibit in the Pearl by Don't Shoot Portland on Northwest 9th and Flanders, right around the corner from where Ted Wheeler is staying. That's what's so funny about it. I was like, damn, he got the thing right there in his neighborhood. But yeah, we kicked it off in this year's installation. Instead of it being like print art of our posters, it's literally everybody that has held our posters. I put all of these favorite pictures that I have of all these different protest moments. And they're literally the recently. We just had a vigil for Aja the other day. Over there, her mom and her uncle came there. I knew her family for a long time. That was, I mean, it's sad. The last time we did something at that location, I think we had Swiggle Mandela. He met Marnell Bruce's family and performed there. Alicia Johnson and Terrell Johnson's mom had done some art there. It's like, it's a sad situation, but I have to bridge the art with the social justice work so that the family can see that people actually care. Because when you look at the news and you see the protests, you hear violence, you hear all this negative stuff. And a lot of times families, just for the decency of mankind, even though they lost their babies, they thinking about how to do it the right way. And so they feel like concerned. They're able to see the courage. They're able to see that their children are actually inspiring people. And so I'm not going to stop doing that. Like, you can always make art, you know?
Yeah, I love that. You said something earlier, and I was really like trying to be an active listener, so I wasn't like trying to hold my thought.
Write it down. How are you talking about?
I know. Something we talked about earlier too. I didn't write stuff down. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was, you know, it's funny, we had this conversation yesterday, and my cousin, first thing in the morning when I woke up, he DM'd me and was like, hey bro, so what organizations do you like truly trust with this protest stuff? And I'm just like, I mean, honestly, like, I don't even try to pay too much attention to that stuff at this point as far as the collective groups. Because a lot of it, to me, you know, there's ego and branding behind it, and it's like there are good people within all those organizations that mean well, but then there's also a lot of discourse when a lot of people come together without a consensus of what they're really doing it for. There's emotions and egos that get involved that kind of derail missions. What is your, how do you feel people can mobilize collectively without allowing those things to affect the mission? I feel like Don't Shoot works because it's not just about protesting, it's also a resource. There's a lot of back-end things that's going on. And there's that focus of, you know, helping people have legal representation, you know, even just educating people. A lot of people don't know about what are their rights, what are not their rights,
exactly,
things like that. So it's very important. So let's say on a broader scale of, okay, we're talking about police brutality on a nationwide scale to the point where even white protesters are getting hurt. How do we speak about inclusion without people taking up too much space? And maybe that's a weighted question to ask you as far as you're looking at the labor, but.
Well, no, I mean, it's important to know why you're protesting, though. That's the whole thing. It's like, imagine, like, my organization, we filed the first couple of lawsuits, right? And so imagine, in my opinion, when everybody was like, oh, shit, Black people just filed a lawsuit against the city of Portland. Oh, shit, Black woman just filed a lawsuit against Chad Wolf and Donald Trump. Like, what? I was like, oh, shit, we like ACLU now. They have the history of showing up for communities. They have the history of filing lawsuits, advocating for people, you know, making statements, pushing out petitions. They might not have the history of showing up in your neighborhood, taking your grandma to the hospital, fighting for your cousin in court, like all the different stuff that we have to do, you know, going to the houses, cleaning up the blood. But we do that, and that's why people show up. It's like we're intimately involved in the community. It's like they know that they can call like my mom and be like, your daughter's not answering my calls, you know, and they know why they're calling me because I know how to do what they want. They're not just saying, "Hey, Jessica, can you help me with this?" Like they literally know that we spent that time, and that's what's so important about like the legacy, like training, understanding what your elders been talking about, doing your own research so that you understand what it takes to be a leader. Because what I can tell you from protests, a lot of it is propaganda. A lot of it, people are showing up anyway. So you getting there and having the bullhorn doesn't relay that you're the leader. I've been in protests where I'll be at the protest and I'll be like, "Oh shit, they just flashbanged us. Let's take a break. We're gonna sit here and be 4.5 minutes." And then you got the police standing there like, "Bam, we're about to get you." And I'm like, "They're not gonna do nothing." And then you got some other people like, "Yeah, let's go because the police is standing at us." And I'm like, "Okay." So I watched like thousands of people go in the other direction around with some other people that really didn't know who they was and probably didn't even know downtown that good. And people was like, "Teressa, everybody's leaving us. We got the police standing us down." And I'm like, "Oh, it's no big old thing. Let's kick it for a minute." The next thing you know, the police jump up on the truck, they leave, and the people that walked off is coming right back because they realize the people taking them somewhere don't even know where they're going. And they realize all the people around them nobody know who those people are, and they don't feel safe. You know what I'm saying? That's where the chaos comes from, because they're like, "What are we really doing out here? Am I safe? What am I getting into?" And for months, we already kind of concerned you with the issue before you get out there. We showing up down here. This is what's going on. Call your legislator, call your senator, and be there at 12. You done already got the action steps. If you show up to the protest, we're going to show you some more call to action steps. You're coming there to get an education. If we can get that many people to show up, they have to leave with something to do, because our reason for coming together is to break the system. We want it to fail to work in the way that it's working. And so we have to have a consensus, like you said, but that takes the organizing. That's organizing in every community, making sure that people are connected. When we first started feeding people, and we started using the Nextdoor app, it was immediate. That's how you can feed 10,000 people. You got all these zip codes ready to feed people. It wasn't rocket science. It was like, okay, what are we doing? Well, it's freezing outside. We got a new mayor. He letting people die. Okay, let's make some food. Let's get it out there. Who's in what neighborhood? Let's go. The same thing when we do our protests. We already know everybody that's showing up. Everybody that's showing up, we're like, "Oh, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?" And we already know why we're there. Some of us might be law students. Some of us might be parents that lost their children. Some of us might be the engineer that knows how to make this all work. Some of it might be the politician that just want to see if more than 4 people show up. But we know why we're there. It's literally a production. Everything is propaganda, you know? Even right now, like I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of organizing. I was like, "Oh, these are some Ted Wheeler All Lives Matter protests." And I made sure not to say it like in the media or something like that, because I didn't want to downplay everybody's efforts. But I was like, this is production. And it's kind of a joke, but it really ain't, because there's people being attacked and harmed. And that's why I got into it. I'm like, you're not about to hurt people I love. This is our community, and they're coming together for the right reason at the right time. You're not about to attack them like that. And so, here go the lawsuit. "Oh, you still gonna attack them? Oh, now you're gonna let Trump come in and attack them?" Okay, like that's the stuff that drives me, like up the wall. Because I'm like, if nothing else, let people protest during a pandemic. It's a crisis. There's a very serious, valid reason to protest right now.
I think, with elections and stuff, I let my people do this, and it's just like, it's like, there's so much old money here that is not as progressive as we would like people to be. And I think that's what he's trying to do, is trying to save face in front of people that he thinks is naive. Like, even if they're mad at him, he's like, "Well, I'm going to do this lesser of two evils approach." And, so people are just comfortable with no change whatsoever. It's like, let's just keep the status quo, let's keep it going.
Absolutely. And he's a numbers guy. You got to realize he used to be the state treasurer. So when you see like the numbers from the election, there were 19 people that ran for office. There were 19 people in the primaries for the mayoral seat. So you do got the two white people at the top, but you got 19 other people voting against them, having thousands of people vote against them. And so he knows, like, wait a minute, I still got, upwards over 100,000 votes, and nobody else even got, anywhere near that. I'm gonna win just off of the fact that there's all these white people out here. He knows that those other votes, those other 19 people, those other 17 people, the ones that didn't vote for him or Sarah, those are people that do not want the same type of leadership in this city. Those are people that were not only running for office, but they were running to the point where they was getting like 12,000 votes, 8,000 votes, all these different. And I'm like, wow, y'all taking votes for me, because y'all should have, in my opinion, most of them were men of color. So I'm like, why y'all not supporting me? Y'all taking 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. I might got my little 18,000. But imagine had I got yours, me and Ted would be in this race. And so that's why I'm not really tripping off of the write-in, because I'm like, wow, that was only literally a little bit over 200,000 people that voted in a city where there's 900,000 plus registered voters. So there weren't enough people voting in the primary, which literally in the primaries, a lot of people don't show up to vote because they wait till November. But I don't think that people are concerned as much with the same candidates. I think that there is something that's happening here where people want something different. And I think they can challenge themselves to pick the leaders that we deserve and not the ones that we have to settle for. So, and that's in every level. That's in protests and everything else. That's why there's like, oh, okay, everybody's a leader. Everybody is a leader,
Oh, yeah.
We can't.
I think if people focus on their interests, and we can exchange those resources or those different, so like, for example, I mentioned sanctuary farms. I know there's also like Bloodbone, which is a black-owned farm. Like, let's say we started a community like restaurant or something, and that farm pretty much gave us all the food and stuff like that, and we were able to create like a sustainable business that can also redirect funds that go back into the EX, so that it's not using your resources or people donating straight to them, but we have some sort of actual business model that creates equity for this change that we really want. Like, I want to be a part of like our daily lives versus like, George Floyd happened and people were like, all right, I want to donate money. Where should I donate money to? And then
it should be every day. It shouldn't take that.
So it's like, if you really want to change something, and it's not just something to like help you with your guilt, it's like, are you going to invest jumpstarting somebody like infrastructure or business with your money, or you just want to like pay one time, or
Exactly. Well, the thing is that before George Floyd died, we had already been promoting like mutual aid throughout the city of Portland, really throughout the state of Oregon. But when we started seeing the numbers of inequities connected to the COVID testing and the COVID diagnosis and the deaths and everything else, we initially created a mutual aid BLM form that really highlighted all the business, all the essential working agencies, organizations, families, people that were doing that direct service work so that they could get the resources. Because we fund funerals, we fund lawsuits, if we have to, we take care of just prime necessities. But when COVID kicked off and George Floyd died, we started giving money out to activists and businesses and organizations that we knew needed to stabilize their situations, because people were sending us unsolicited funds, right? But the fact is that we would not be able to operate doing that. And so the most important thing that we do is share for everybody else's information. We have a vast network of people that support our work and trust us. And so a lot of our community partners, they don't depend on a whole lot of resources from us. We'll pay our bills to do business with them, But a lot of times just being in proximity with the work that we do, and it's because we do work in our community. It's not just because we like, oh yeah, we need people to support us because, you know, Black Lives Matter and we need like stimulus money or we need resilience money or nothing else. We're the ones they calling for stuff. Like, Tressa, my basement is flooded. I own this house. I ain't got insurance. I don't want to lose the kids. Like, and we literally have to go over there and find some people in the community that know how to work on houses, fix the stuff, make sure the social worker don't come. You know, like we're called on. So that's why people trust us. But when we know that people in our community do that kind of stuff, food justice is necessary. I think, but nah, that's mandatory, and there should be an agency buy-in throughout our community where we support those businesses, not just for them to donate to us, but like I was saying, make sure that they are funded, make sure that they're self-sufficient, that they can employ, and that they don't have to hustle to make it, because the hustle is what kills you. I used to work for an accountant, so working for a CPA, you understand. We talked about it, product, services, and fees, and sometimes you might have a business, but you will be the product. You'll be the service, and you can't afford to charge any fees because you're already giving away all of your business. So you become destabilized, and nobody can count on you for any services. That happens a lot to marginalized communities because we don't have the privilege of inheritance. We don't have that standard or that foundation or that line of credit that other people are dependent on. They're not dependent on sales; they got credit. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to do better. I think even though we're in this devastating time, that this is an equalizer for us because people are stimulating through crowdsourcing and through direct community engagement. So any organizations that you feel need to be leveled up, send me the links. We'll throw them in our mutual aid form because since we do stay active, people do donate to those causes. A couple of weeks ago, I guess it was right after Juneteenth, and right before 4th of July, we started adding some Native communities to our mutual aid form. And since then, people have been all over the place, like Idaho and everything, but they're like, they buy tractors, they're buying like all the different things they need for their land because they don't have water. And they've been worried, waiting on different organizations to be able to have the means or writing the grants. And it's like, oh, skip a grant. Some people are going to drop some stuff off today. We'll get some gas and let's bring it on out there. Like, why would we wait for the grant process when we, if we don't have the operating budget, we're not going to get the money anyway? Like, let's figure out what's happening in this community and let's build those resources and make them consistent. Let's tell them every Wednesday we got to do the same thing, have everybody keep giving, The same with these young entrepreneurs. What do they need? Let's go ahead and get that out in the community so that it'll be seated, because right now people are at home. People don't have a problem with giving more. They know what's happening. They know the inequities are racial. It's violent. Violent. And they think we're violent because we protest violent. Racism is violent.
They call us violent because we want to change the status quo. And so it's the disruption to their norm. Mm-hmm. I'll make sure my phone doesn't do the same thing.
All that. You suck.
Technology, man. Okay. That was a lot of good stuff. On just like a holistic tip of people that are out here doing the fight, like I wanted to touch on the importance of people taking care of themselves, because I've had friends have mental breakdowns from protesting and stuff, especially my Black friends that go. Even non-Black friends, just you think some people are still working in the daytime and they're out every night and they're not taking care of themselves. They worried about if somebody tripping about them posting their food on Instagram or whatever. And it's just like, I think it's really important people know what's in their heart. Just be you and do what you're doing, and don't feel a certain way about how people are perceiving what you're doing on the internet, because the internet's not real life. And I want to know, are you taking steps for yourself? during this time?
Yeah, so I started that 10 years ago, right? When my nephew died, I tried to figure out how I was gonna win, and I don't know what the end goal was, but I wanted to make. I needed evidence, so I started early. When I was posting a lot, I noticed that people would stop following me. I noticed that my family would be like, "Are you okay?" I noticed that I would rant. I would do all kinds of stuff online. I'd be Tupac 1 minute, then I'd be Angel Simone later on, then I'd be on my Dr. King. And so I was like, wow, I literally, I'm like showing all of my feelings online. And so one of the things I did to make it a healthy thing for me, and also to keep me inspired, was I created like 40 something pages, focusing on all these different things: social change, artists for Black lives. Like, I lost a loved one to gun violence and I wanted to stop. Like 40 days seeking common unities. Like all these different focuses of just basically looking at my rant and being like, wow, I'm ranting about this. Boom, let me make a page. I'm ranting about this. Boom, let me turn it into a group. And so I created all these little networks where I could be what I need to be for myself, and still get, through what I'm going through, because the social media kind of is the real life. I mean, you could put yourself on there and you could be like the avatar of who you really are. But if you're a truth seeker like myself that's looking for accountability. MySpace on international stuff with people. To get consistent information from several different places. I get to research. I mean, that makes me happy. I feel like
And being present, you'll notice the change. WriteinTeressaRaiford. That's good. And then, like, Rashonda, Rashonda talk from YGB, other people, and then they got a whole resources together to really do stuff. And it just shows how we're all important. And
yes.
One thing I want people to recognize is that, when it comes to Black leaders, we always become martyrs, because it's like, this is the person that's supposed to lead us to this or that. And I would rather say that what you're doing is a huge example of what we all could be doing. And when people shift to that mentality, then it doesn't matter. They can't use the same tactics. When you're talking about risking your life and stuff like that, it's like, if something happens to you or I or somebody else, if everybody's centered and focused on their journey and their life path, or whatever, however people want to call it, then it won't stop. The change won't stop. You know what I mean? But with the fear that they induce in people, they're still trying to use similar tactics that make people worried about, well, if Teressa stops fighting and stops then that, what are we going to do?
Yeah, don't put that on me.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since my nephew died, I'm looking at the kids grow up. You know, like imagine he died 10 years ago. It'll be September 26th. And I intentionally was like, oh, these grown-ups, they passed. I need to get to these babies. I need to make sure they know who they are. I need them to understand values. I want them to understand opportunities. I want them to understand their circumstance. Like my whole thought was like, I want them to know so much about the world by the time they graduate, or even if they like little kids, to where can't nobody get over on them. They're not gonna say those people or they did this to me. You know, there's not gonna be any of that. They're gonna be up on it. And so watching that happen, watching everybody around, I'm like, oh, and I don't even know if they got it from me directly, but I know that I intentionally connected to somebody that's going to be in some kind of proximity to them to kind of get them on that same focus that we don't have to be okay with everything the way that it is. Which means that we've come to the conclusion that it's cool. You know, there ain't no reason to fight if you're going to assimilate. And my thought is that I know too many people that remind me every day that we on stolen land. You know, and I know too many struggles that happen on this land by our people. And the fact that we had a time where we could actually make direct change happen. Your generation is so understanding this process of what's going on. This is not the time to slow down. Like we're getting there. We're getting there because you're a generation that already understands what's going on. You know your obstacles, and you just happen to be in a pandemic where you got more time to learn more. And you're so powerful right now with all this extra time on your hands. The reason that the uprisings are having so much momentum is because we are all in space where we get to be conscious. You know, we get to be focused. Our reality is like we have a lot of time, even if we have things going on. So with that time, we're adjusting the way that we perceive things because we're being more informed. And that's good for all of us. Whether the information is good or not, it's good to understand. So let's just keep gaining understanding and break this system. It's going to be complicated, but it can happen. You know, everything is possible. You just got to want something. I think if we didn't learn anything else through COVID, we learned that the patriarch, that whole system is like a propaganda tool. Is none of it's real. If you look at those videos of the mayor, he looks weak. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing he can say to make you feel like he's smarter than he is. Now you see him for who he is. Oh, it's a man, a human being. This person, he's just a person. Wow. And he's not even probably a nice person. He's kind of arrogant. You know, like the reality of who we are, all of that has surfaced. This surfaced off of Zooms. And when they couldn't stand up at the podium no more, and they're sitting in the living room and the kids running in the background, everybody became human. Mm-hmm. So that circumstance, that pompous, you know, all that extra artificial, that's gone. Now, who are you? How do you expect you're going to lead this community? What do you stand for? How do I know I can trust you? What can you show me? I'm not talking about the papers and the rhetoric and the lip service. What can you actually do right now to serve people? You know? And you get to ask those questions because they're running. I like to know because I don't see them.
Essentially, I just feel like
I don't even know if they're running anymore. I think they just wait for it.
The impression I get from him is like he's not even the one making decisions. He's just a face.
All of them are. The whole structure is, and that's why you don't need to go in it wanting to fit in it. If your reasonableness is that once I'm in there, I can fix it. No, don't fix it. Get in there and dismantle that shit. Get in there and intentionally dismantle it. Interrupt it. You know, interrupt it. Make it feel like it's weak. If there's a black mayor in Stockton, California. What's Michael? I think I forgot his name. But he's cool. He went in there. He's already changing stuff. And I'm like, Stockton is small, but look at what he's doing. There was a black woman that was the mayor in Compton. Mm-hmm. Went in there. Black mayor in San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not talking about Keisha over in Atlanta. I'm talking about right here on the West Coast where we don't trust nobody. You know what I'm saying? And we put people in office in major cities that have major issues that relative to the ones we're dealing with here, which is literally political suicide, political enslavement, and propaganda that creates the oppression and the discrimination that a lot of people face because you monetize priorities on poverty. And that often means some black racism type shit. But we got it going on. We can change that. We literally can change it. All it has to do is be a mandate per vote. Who do you want to lead your city? What does that look like to you? What kind of values do they need to be able to address the issues that we have currently and the ones that we'll be facing as we continue through COVID? Because we're not done yet. And I don't see any concrete plans on the line, but I know that before the May primary even happened, we already built something that's infrastructure that's being developed all over the country right now. You got scientists from Harvard out here talking to little old black Teressa. Said, will you be on the panel? What do we tell the American government? What do we talk about in Washington, D.C.? Really? I don't know. But I think all we have to do is encourage one another, and we can do anything, like anything's possible. I can't even believe the stuff that's going on, but it is all of us together. And if the leaders that we choose don't have that mindset, we're not getting anywhere, period. The long win.
That's real. I mean, I guess, like, I can't stress how important, because, like, for me, you know, I've had my issues with voting, but more so on a national standpoint. I always felt that, like, city and state, like, you can see the most change within your community. It's like an example would be how federally marijuana is, but like during COVID, that's an essential business.
89 million in 1 month.
You know, state that due to this circumstance or whatever.
So it doesn't have an essential, but it's still with.
At the liquor store.
You know? So, yeah, so I mean, death is essential in America, though. You know, if you think about it, things that are toxic are essential in this country. Why do you think we pay so much for health care? You know, we even charge a lot of money to bury bodies, you know, like, but we won't put that money in education. We won't put it in housing.
You know, the education thing is really interesting to me because, you know, I I drove by Jefferson High School the other day, and, you know, like, I'm all aware about these institutions. Like, it's like, it was always for reprogramming and not really educating. So part of me is like, yo, you're not going to fund the educational system for us. Like, it's really a blessing in a sense for us to, like you said, we have time right now. So it's time for us to educate ourselves, educate our children, and not leave it up to the state or city to educate or reprogram our children.
That part.
And so, like, I made a statement in one of my comments. I was like, look, the one thing Republicans got right is, like, getting the money, you know, like, not always having stuff state funded and stuff, because they do it under, there's always some loophole or something where the people that need it the most are still disenfranchised and things like that, you know. It's like, you know, a school like Oswego might get more money based off of performance of the school, and they have a good PTA or something already. So they're already getting money into that, and they're getting money from the city or whatever. And then, like, you know, schools over here, you know, they didn't perform well, so they're not going to get the money. It's really backwards, you know, like, so for me, I'm like, I really think that, you know, as much as we're pushing to dismantle the government, it also just starts with building our communities. And, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a village to raise people.
Yeah.
To work on not being afraid of each other. You know, sometimes I say hello to older black men and they're surprised. you know, I don't know if it's because I'm wearing dreads or whatever, but like they're surprised me even talking to them, you know. And so like I've been just in my daily life trying to break down those barriers in order for us to really, you know, have those generational conversations so we don't lose some real knowledge and information, because as human beings, we're storytellers.
Yeah.
And that's how all of our knowledge has been translated or transferred for as long as I feel like we've been around, whether it's whatever. And that is what popular culture is used as a source of entertainment these days, but that we can take that back as artists and continue to kind of control the narrative in the midst of like this mass propaganda stuff going on social media and stuff like that. But yeah, that goes back to art being part of the revolution as well.
Absolutely, and the whole thing is that when we say art, to me, I'm hearing like everything you're saying, and it's like my heart, right? And the whole thing about like the older generation not having a relationship with the younger generation, we got to think about like art and history together, because you got to look at the circumstance, like that displacement of those communities, that framing of trust against each other. You know, like people have to realize like our social impacts also have a lot to do with the way we behave in society. Because I noticed that when I first moved back home from Texas the year my nephew died, you know, I was down there in Texas and everybody's like, hello, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? So you get used to seeing people and your eyes meet. And even if they don't, you're already saying hello. And then I got home and I kept saying hi to people or thank you to people. And people was like, you know, like just throwing me my money or whatever. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, why are people treating me bad? You know, and I didn't know if it was racism or what was happening. But I realized that people were not willing to engage with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I thought to myself again, like, wow, no wonder, you know, my nephew was saying like they don't have nothing for us. I started seeing that everybody was responsible for being the they. You know what I'm saying? Because they were not engaging with community. They would be in coffee shops and people would look over at each other, but they wouldn't like meet eyes, or, you know, it was just really weird being here after being in a place where everybody's real country and happy, you know. And it takes away your security, you know, like the fact that you speaking to elders and they're not used to you speaking. You know, back in the day, you couldn't have a transfer of energy with an elder without acknowledging them. That was usual and customary, you know. So the fact that they're like, oh wow, you spoke, or that you're like, oh, let me make that motion, that means that there's in that clock of time there was a section that was moved. And that's when I'm talking about displacement. I'm like, boom, boom. How do we put those components back together? And it is going to take art, but it's also going to be that impact of history and how you perceive it, that comes through in your art to help communicate that. Because that's what I heard from you when you said that. It's like, I see the elders, I speak to them, this is my art. And I was like, ooh, that's slick. You know, because it brings back it transfers us back into space together. It brings us back. It's intergenerational. It's a developmental change that's necessary, but it's also part of social change.
And I have to admit that, like, you know, that's something I didn't start doing until a few years ago, very intentionally. But that's the thing, so you have to be aware of those things. And, you know, and that goes back to, like, you know, allies that protest and stuff too. It's like, you know, when you do your daily stuff and you see some sort of injustice where you have privilege, say something. You know, I feel like as a Black cisgendered man, I do that for my women, femmes, non-binary folks, and it's just important, you know. Right word, yes, you don't.
I was gonna say, make sure, like, let people in your generation know also that the weaponizing of people of color, like, there's a lot of violence in that. You know, I keep seeing little circumstances in the activism that's happening where people are like, oh no, I know
Hi everyone, Token Rose here. We were just watching Teressa and VNPRT. It looks like they probably stopped it on accident. I'm not certain. I'll pick up the live feed again if they go live again, but we just want to say thank you. We're going to be doing artists for Teressa every Tuesday and Thursday. On Thursday, we're actually going to have Creme Brulee. Christian is a good friend of ours, been working on the campaign and very vocal in Black Lives Matter right now. So yeah, thank you again for joining us. I don't think it meant to end that abruptly. I do think that probably something happened, but we appreciate y'all joining us either way. And then again, if they do pick back up, I'll go ahead and just stream this again. I did try to stream it through YouTube as well. So there's a Facebook link. So if you want to jump on Facebook on the write-in page, you'll be able to see this stream through YouTube as well. So again, just thanks for joining us. I'll pick this live feed up if VNPRT and Teressa join us again. All right, thanks again, y'all. Stay woke.
Victory over the Dallas Mavericks here. I didn't know who was sitting over there. This doesn't show you how serious this is to that man. I don't know what will.
We have a bad network for that, for our work.
Let's see if we can address that.
So a lot of our partners, they don't depend on a whole lot of resources. So we'll pay our bills, but a lot of times. Like, oh yeah, we need people to support us because Black Lives Matter, we need like stimulus money, or we need stimulus money, or nothing else. We're the ones that call them for stuff. Like, my basement is flooded. I own this house. I ain't got insurance.
So you called me. You said you wasn't gonna get back on.
Oh, because Ty told me it was my bedtime.
Oh, wait a minute. You're not there yet. Wait, do you remember where you were though? It was like in a very pivotal moment. I'm like, man, I'm starting from scratch.
Every time I talk shit, I get kicked off the internet.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I've seen these famous people being on here online for 3 hours. I'm like, but it did kick off like right at 9, which was interesting.
Well, yeah, I think all I was saying was that don't weaponize Black people. And if you want to say Black people, say Black people. Don't keep calling us, putting everybody into the monolithic bowl of POCs, because it seems like there's a whole lot of weaponizing that's going on. And a lot of people, like when you were talking about the allies and stuff, I know for a fact that a lot of our allies understand racism a whole lot more than we do, right? Because they've been in relationships with brown people, and then also in relationships with people that are adamant about, their privilege and how they, tolerate certain circumstances and language and just, shit. I mean, the world is literally built on white supremacy. But what we got to realize is that it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be multicultural to make white people happy, right? It's not. We can't just all get along so that they can be like, oh, see, look, everybody's getting along now because you are the oppressor. You're like the colonizer that created the obstacle and the segregation of all these people. And even if we were all in our different regions and we were brought together because of the atrocity of genocide, slavery, and all these vicious, tumultuous wars that have taken over the world since the beginning of time, you can't also be the producer of unity for us and solidarity, and you can't exploit and weaponize us just because you have a relationship with us. The abuse that we suffer and the way that we deal with that and process it in our daily lives, we own that, if nothing else. Right? The oppression is owned by the person that is creating the oppression. But how we deal with those circumstances and how we live our lives, that is ours. And so you can't say like, oh, my dog matters. You can't say like, I can use the N word against this Black woman because my friends let me get the N pass, or just appropriate somebody and be like, well, my Black baby. I'm raising a Black child. I know about it. You can't do none of that shit because unless you have that experience and that life and that trauma, that tragedy, nobody wants to claim the tragedy. Nobody wants to claim the trauma. So don't use the instrument when you got privilege with it, because we don't have no privilege with it. If I say, oh yeah, my Black son, don't nobody care he's your Black son and your Black woman. You have no privilege there. That's cool that you got the Black kid. What has he been jailed before? They probably wondering if you got a jail record and how many baby mamas or something. But no, don't use this that way. It's not okay. It gets to the point where it's a lot. I don't know how to. I'm still trying to navigate it myself. When I see my friends that are non-Black using weaponizing language and appropriating things with callousness, and I think that if nothing else, with this movement, that mediating that, mitigating that, that's going to be something that will help to build sustainability for this generation. Not letting that be an obstacle, because once y'all get into power situations, it gets worse. So if you nip it early, you won't have that problem with the dynamics.
Well, it's funny that cut off on the dicks. I feel like we're getting close towards the end. Yeah, so I guess honestly, I want to say thank you for speaking to me, and like I hope people take this as a reminder that we all have our own work to do, and we're not going to fully rely upon you or anybody else to like way. It's more of a joint communal effort, and if anything, like you're an inspiration to people, and like people recognize the power they have within themselves to create change.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you, and
Thank you.
I want to continue to converse on certain things and work together for a better future.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm thankful and honored. Like I told you, that you even gave me your space to share. So thank you. It is an honor.
So good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody tuning in with my sleepy butt. I'm sitting here with my dog now, like, okay, bedtime for real. Thank you for letting me jump back on so I can say goodnight.
All right, that was it. It feels like. Good night, everybody. Sweet dreams. Stay woke.